One night, I was driving home late with my girlfriend Emily. We had just come from a weekend getaway in a remote cabin out in the middle of nowhere. We were miles away from the nearest town and were returning home just after 2 a.m. My girlfriend and I had been working a lot lately, and we just needed some time away from everything to just hang out and enjoy each other's company. The moon hung low in the sky that night, casting an eerie glow over the desolate countryside. As we drove down the lonely, winding road, the only sounds we heard were the hum of the car engine and the occasional rustling of leaves in the breeze. I remembered glancing at the clock on the dashboard. It was 2:15 in the morning. I distinctly remembered Emily, sitting beside me, scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the dim light of the screen. As the night drew on, we were now only a couple of miles from the nearest town. "Almost home," I said, trying to shake off the growing unease that had settled over me since we left the cabin. I had heard many stories in the past of things that happened to people on these desolate country roads. It was my job to get myself and my girlfriend home safe, despite the uneasiness I felt deep in my gut. Emily nodded absent-mindedly, her attention still on her phone. Suddenly, the car's headlights flickered. I frowned and tapped the dashboard, but the lights flickered again before going out completely, plunging us into total darkness. "You gotta be kidding me," I said, quite irritated. "This could not have happened at a worse time." "What the hell?" I muttered, pulling the car to a stop at the side of the road. I turned to Emily, who was now looking up, her face pale. "Did the car just die?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know. Let me check," I replied, stepping out of the car, unaware of the giant dark figure looming in the darkness. "Jason, I don't want to die out here," Emily whispered, clearly beginning to panic. "Don't worry, babe. We'll be fine," I reassured her. The night air was chilly, and I remember shivering as I popped the hood and peered into the engine. Everything seemed in order, but the car wouldn't start. Emily, who was now really freaked out, came to stand next to me, asking if I was almost done. I noticed that the fan motor had gone out, and this had caused the car to overheat. I did the best I could to give the car a temporary fix so we could both get out of here in one piece. As I was about to close the hood, I heard Emily gasp. I turned quickly and saw her staring out into the darkness, her eyes wide with fear. "Emily, what is it?" I asked, my voice tense. She ran back into the car, and the sheer look of horror on her face told me that we were in big trouble. She pointed a trembling finger towards the rear view mirror that showed the trees lining the road. I squinted, trying to see what she was pointing at. At first, I saw nothing but shadows. Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was tall, impossibly tall, and its limbs were unnaturally long. The figure moved with a strange, jerky motion, as if it were a marionette being controlled by invisible strings. My heart pounded in my chest as the figure drew closer, its face obscured by the shadows. "Start the car," I shouted, slamming the hood shut and rushing to the driver's side. I fumbled with the door handle, my hands shaking. I managed to get the door open and slid into the driver's seat, locking the doors behind me. The figure was now standing in the middle of the road, mere feet from the car. Its face was still hidden, but I could feel its gaze boring into me. I turned the key in the ignition, praying for the car to start. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared to life. I didn't waste a second. I floored the accelerator, the tires screeching as they sped away. Emily looked back, her eyes wide with terror. It was still following us. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the figure running after us, its long limbs flailing wildly. No matter how fast we drove, it seemed to be keeping pace. "How is it doing that?" Emily cried, her voice breaking. "I don't know," I replied, my knuckles white as I gripped the steering wheel. "Just keep your eyes on the road ahead," I said to Emily, who was now in tears. In my head, I was sure we were going to die. The figure continued to chase us, its movements becoming more erratic. I swerved around a bend, and for a moment, I lost sight of it. I pressed the pedal harder, pushing the car to its limits. Finally, we saw the lights of a small town in the distance. My heart leaped with relief. I glanced in the mirror one last time, but the figure was gone. I took a deep breath and looked at Emily. She was in complete shock. We sped into the town, not slowing down until we reached a brightly lit gas station. I pulled over, and both of us got out and held each other in silence, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. What on earth did we just encounter? Neither of us had the slightest clue as we looked around, our eyes wide with fear. Whatever it was had stopped following us. We spent a few minutes in the gas station, trying to catch our breaths, honestly too scared to continue our journey. The light of morning was already seeping through. We drove home in silence, the rest of the way. The memory of that night etched into our minds forever. Till this day, we cannot explain our encounter. We never spoke of the figure again, but whenever we drove down a lonely road, we can't help but feel a lingering sense of dread, as if something is still out there, waiting for us in the darkness.